Good evening and welcome to another edition of Jazz Tales for this 14th day of April. So glad you could join us, making sure that everything's going here, folks. I hope YouTube is it's being wacky. I'm wired right in, so we should be all right, but just if somebody could let me know where we are, but I think we're okay. Welcome. So glad you could join us. Let me tell you about this wonderful artist that we have here with us tonight. I'm so pleased to have Matt Niess, who is a Washington, D.C.-based crossover trombonist who served in the U.S. Army band Pershing's Own for 30 years. He was a member of the U.S. Army Blues Jazz Ensemble and the U.S. Army Brass Quintet. He's from Levittown, Pennsylvania, and a graduate of Woodrow Wilson High School. He earned his undergrad degree in instrumental music education from Winchester University in 1986, a master's in music in classical trombone performance from George Mason University in 1996, and a doctor of musical arts in classical trombone performance from the Catholic University of America in 2015. He was director of bands at Calvert High School in Prince Frederick, Maryland from 1986 to 1988, and has taught on the jazz faculties of Shenandoah, George Mason, and Towson universities. He also served as director of jazz studies and professor of trombone at Winchester University from 2003 to 2007, and is currently the professor of trombone at Shenandoah Conservatory and George Mason University. With the Army Blues, he served as a senior producer and jazz coordinator of the Eastern Trombone Workshop, producing over 300 concerts at various venues ranging from the White House to the Monterey Jazz Festival. And if that wasn't enough, in 2008 he founded the National Jazz Workshop, which runs 2 summer camps and sponsors a year-round honor band. To date, over 1,000 students have participated in the National Jazz Workshop, and the year-round band has performed at the Kennedy Center, the Jazz Education Network, New Orleans, St. Louis, Dallas, Blues Alley, and numerous jazz festivals. And if that wasn't enough, he is the founder and director of the Capitol Bones, a great jazz trombone ensemble which has received national recognition, was the winner of the 1991 International Trombone Association K. Windig Award. Folks, I could go on, but we're here to talk and play. And so you need to go to his website, mattniess.com, and find out more of all the great things, including all the great people he's played with. It's my pleasure to welcome Matt Niess. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and good evening to everybody. Looking forward to playing some tunes and talking tonight.
Good, good. I think we're good. Everybody seems to be on their way there. So,
fantastic.
So we're going to start out this evening with a great old standard called Alone Together. Welcome, everybody. Hope you enjoy the show. Beautiful. Man, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I want to say some hi to some folks here. You ask if people, and they really
Sure.
do. So we're going to say hi to a few people here.
That'd be fantastic.
First of all, John Zontek says hi. John's in Baltimore, Maryland. John's a trombone player
Yeah.
who plays lead in the Columbia Jazz Band with me. He says hi. Lou Russo and Janet, which are up in Nutley, New Jersey, vice president of Jazz Alive, says great way to kick off the spring season of Jazz Tales. Have a great show, Fred and Matt. Stephen Argona Stephen Argona and Laurie Winning up in Easton, Pennsylvania. Say hi. John Swaninger, he's a trombone player here in Easton, if I remember correctly, says hello. David and Netta up in Montville, New Jersey, say hi, Fred and Matt. And Ed Ruffeld, who lives in Washington, D.C., says hi, Fred and Matt. Looking forward to another great Jazz Tale interview and performance. Thank you, folks. What are we going to do next? You wanted to say something about the trombone, right?
Sure. Well, I'm playing my large classical trombone, which is not the typical thing you see a jazz trombone player play. This is a symphonic instrument you could play in an orchestra.
Right.
It has a big, dark, rich sound. And I'm a crossover player, and I kind of have got back in touch with my classical trombone training, which I've always enjoyed. And recently I've been playing a lot of jazz on this big horn. I brought both horns. I'll switch to the small horn soon, but I kind of like playing the big horn. I feel grounded when I play the horn, maybe because I get called back to all my my basic training, so to speak, on the trombone. But yeah, it's a classical trombone, so I thought I would play this crossover piece. Well, I turned it into a crossover piece. I've been taking jazz standards and then writing a chorus up front that's more classical oriented, but still based on the jazz tune.
It's
And-
that camera there.
Yeah. Oh, it's this camera.
Right now.
Looking
Yes.
at the okay. It's like being on the news, right?
I know, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So I write these little interludes or introductions to these tunes, and then I go into the tune. And this is Wine and Roses. So if you're a classical trombonist or just a classical musician in general, or even a listener, you might notice some little tidbits from known pieces that I add into this. But other than that, it's something you might hear on a trombone recital. Other than it's going to turn to a jazz tune.
Cool. All right. Days of Wine and Roses.
Yes.
Henry Mancini, right?
Yes.
If I remember correctly. Yes.
You are correct.
Yes.
You're correct, sir. First, right? Yeah, let's do that. Now I'm gonna switch horns. Oh, that's right. So this is. I'm going to my traditional.
No, I was going to go right into it, so it's good. Yeah. So you're switching horns now to a smaller.
This is actually I got this horn on I think eBay for $80. Yeah. Actually, it's a funny story. So can I tell a story?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So we were doing I think it was a Christmas tree lighting downtown, and Joshua Bell was one of the guests, and it started to rain. And we're outside, and so we're all huddled like this. And there was a story about one of his violins, like a $6 million violin or something, or $4 million, and this outrageously priced violin. And I think it was Reagan Bruff, myself, and all three of us were huddled in this one area where the rain wasn't hitting. And Reagan says, "Is that your multi-million-dollar violin?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I turned and looked at it, and I looked at him. I said, "I got this for $80 on eBay." And he laughed. It was funny, you know.
That's a great story.
Well, yeah, it's an old Martin. These are metal. There's certain metals that they did, and that's why horns from that era might be different. Don't quote me on any of that, but it's a great story.
Oh,
anyway.
That's great.
But horns from different eras definitely sound different, right?
There we go. So we're going to do wave next.
perfectly rehearsed.
Exactly.
Yeah, Matt, that was great. Folks, I see that some of you are saying that it's pausing. It's interesting here because after that very first thing when we first started, I'm showing excellent condition. My switcher's sending out perfect signals. YouTube's telling me we're good on my end, so I'm sorry about that. I'm wired directly into the internet, so we should be okay. I'm sorry about any of that. You know that these shows stay up, so you can easily come back and catch it. I know that in the past, some people have actually gone back just a little bit, so they're a little bit behind us, but then it plays through fine. But hopefully you'll be okay here in a minute. Like I said, we're showing everything just fine here. Let me see someone that I haven't said. Hello, everyone. Golden Donut. Not sure who you are, but welcome. Thank you.
Donuts.
Yes, donuts. Donuts would be nice. So we'd like to thank a sponsor for this evening that has sponsored this episode of Jazz Tales. Russo Consultants, thank you so much for your sponsorship of tonight's episode of Jazz Tales. All right. And if you'd like to know more about how to sponsor a student or a show, just go to the sponsorship tab on jazz-live.org. So those of you that follow the show know that I ask this same question, and with what I said about Matt's just great resume, he's perfect for this question. And what we do here at Jazz Alive in bringing this music, hopefully continuing this music and preserving this music, but I think it's important for the students to hear how master musicians like Matt got to where they are. What was that one thing or several things that made you go, I have to be a musician?
There definitely are several, and so I thought about this question. Oh, this camera now. there actually are more than one, but and it's over a pretty short time period, considering how old I am now. But I remember when I was in elementary school, and I grew up in a house full of music, so all my siblings played instruments. My parents are great music lovers, and they were always playing all kinds of music. But my dad was a big band fan. He was a World War II vet from that era, 40s guy. And if anybody knows anyone raised in the 40s, those men there's a different breed of men. You know, he's always a gentleman, just a great guy. Miss him. And he was always playing great big band music, but always also classical too. So I grew up listening to a lot of great music. But I remember when I was in elementary school, there was two music teachers, Mrs. Fletcher, and then the gentleman who would also teach, and I can't remember his name, but one day they had us write musical notes on staff paper. I'll never forget, I remember it right now. And so we wrote the notes. He just called them circles or dots, whatever. Write these dots. So we would draw them on the staff paper and fill them in. And then we got to walk up to the piano, and he would play it for us. He would play the notes on the piano, and I remember looking up at the, I was in grade, I was not even maybe third or fourth grade, if that, And I remember looking up at the piano as an old stand-up, and looking up at the notes, and he was playing it, and it just blew my mind that what I put on this piece of paper, I could hear. And we had a piano at home. I got to take the paper home. And my mom played piano, my sister played piano, and so I guess someone showed me some of the notes, and I was just like hitting it, and it did something to my brain. So I was a music lover from that point forward. I started trumpet in 4th or 5th grade. I was terrible, and then the middle school band director, Joe Gangemi, is a sax player. He's actually from the Philly region. Some people might know him. Joe Gangemi. He was the middle school band director, and he handed me a baritone horn, which, if you don't know, it's like a big trumpet. It's the same mouthpiece as this. And from the moment I picked up that baritone horn, I could play. The trumpet was not my instrument. And he recognized for some reason that I should play a bigger mouthpiece. So I picked up that horn, and I could play. I remember I was playing Carnival Venice with his band in 6th grade.
Wow.
And he was really cool. Let's say we had a Christmas concert and we were rehearsing Coventry Carol or something. He'd walk in with a flute or a sax. He was a reed man. And he'd say, today we're going to play Country Carol Bebop. And we'd rehearse our music, our sectionals, whatever the concert was coming up. And he would just like improvise over the top. And I remember asking him, I was like, how do you know what notes to play? It always blew my mind, like, how do you know what notes to play? And I remember him showing me, wow, these are the chords and these are the scales. I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. Then I would try to do it. And then he encouraged me to switch to trombone when I got to high school, and because he said there was no future in a baritone horn. Of course, there's a future for baritone horn for some people. I guess he knew something I didn't. So I switched to trombone. But during that time, I kind of wanted to be an accountant. I had CPA on my mind all through middle school and going into high school. I still played everything, but I wanted to be an accountant, and I loved math. I loved calculators. Remember calculators, the Texas Instruments? I just loved numbers. And then something happened around my sophomore, junior year. Had another great band director, Byron Kindig. This is in Levittown, PA, all these great music teachers I had. Whoever hired the music teachers there back then, fantastic, thank you. So he was a great band director, and he was very demanding. He had discipline, but he was still, you could talk to him. But I remember he was a great example. And I remember I asked him one day, I was like, I think I want to do music for a career. I'm not sure. I think I want to be a band director like you. And he turned to me and he said, I'll never forget it. He says, well, if there's anything else you can do for a living, then you should do that. But if there's nothing else you can imagine yourself doing, then you should by all means do this.
Wow.
And it's just like, it was boom.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I thought I wanted to be an accountant. I liked architecture too. I thought I wanted to be an architect too. I was interested in that, angles, geometry and all that. But something just happened, and that was it. It was all those teachers, all the experiences, and when someone actually asked me to reach inside to see what I envisioned myself doing, this is it, like right here, right now. This is cool. This is
wow.
This is what I want to do. So I was really influenced by music educators,
right?
By good music educators,
right. Well, there have been a lot of stories that have come through here on that first question, but that answer from your band director to me takes the prize of all of the answers. I mean, mind blown. I mean, that's just the way he said it. That's just great. Wow. So I got to ask, Carnival of Venice, like the Herbert Clark thing?
I played it on baritone horn, and
the whole thing.
No, it was like a watered down version for
all right.
for
I
middle
was
school
going to say,
kids.
man, if you played that whole
it was like and then it was like maybe one variation.
Okay.
But he had me doing it, in front of the middle school band, and I remember doing it once, and my music fell off the stand, but I had it memorized, so I just kept playing it.
Wow. I did one in sixth grade on tuba. It was called Egotistical Elephant. Now, please, there's no, all right? I don't want to see any comments. Egotistical Elephant. What are we playing next?
Oh, okay. So, what I like a lot about the trombone is all different sounds you can get, right? All different moods. And you want to do Stella?
Okay.
I'm going to put in a bucket mute. And for all the trombone players out there and brass players, this is the old cloth one. I like these the best.
I do too.
Yeah, they just have a nice resonance.
They do.
It's velvety.
Yes.
Yes. So let's
Victor Young, Stellar Will by Starlight.
Yeah. Let's do Stella. And two flats, right? Yes. How about we start it kind of spacey, and then we'll pick a tempo. Does that work? Works. Love these velvety mutes.
I do too. I've always, that's probably my favorite sound on a trombone is when, you
Yeah.
play that, yeah.
The metal ones are great. They're convenient. They're easy to put on, but they sound metallic. But I use those too. But
Yeah.
something about this.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful, man. It's
I love it.
beautiful sound. Steve and Laurie up in Easton, Pennsylvania say just sounds fantastic.
Oh,
And
thanks.
I would agree. I am just thoroughly enjoying having you here playing with you, man. Thank you.
So Pennsylvania, the homeland.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
What are we doing next?
Oh, let's do something different. Let's do the Dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andy Laverne.
Yeah. This will be very different than anything we've done.
True. Any story behind why you picked this one?
No, I'm always trying to do things that I don't normally do and think outside the box and pick tunes that I don't hear many trombone players play or just hear people play in general. So this is one that I discovered
Excellent. Dream by Andy Laverne. That's a great call. You know, it's an interesting tune in that the I guess you would call it the B section with the C sharp. In that, you know, you kind of want to go there, and then he goes to that 5 and back to that.
Yeah,
it's out of
it's
nowhere
unusual.
For a second. Yeah, it's great though. I love it. Yeah.
Kind of makes you think different when you're playing.
Yeah,
I can't play my usual shtick over that. I have to actually think and
think out of it. Yeah, that's
get
great.
my mind out of my usual path.
No,
Which is I'm always trying to do something like that.
I hear you.
Put myself on the spot every time I do something.
Well, Sue and Mike Ressler says, sounds great, even though we are listening in the car on the PA Turnpike.
The PA Turnpike. Oh.
Yes. Sue and Mike are from New Holland, Pennsylvania.
Yes, New Holland, all right.
And Sue is on our board for Jazz Alive, and Mike was the longtime librarian for the President's Own Marine Band.
Is that right?
Yes, and he went to Westchester as well, if I remember correctly.
My wife
Way
was,
before you, I'm sure.
Yeah, my wife was a librarian with the Army Band.
Oh,
Yeah, so
okay.
They could probably talk for hours.
They probably could. So I want to go next
Okay.
to talking about mentors,
Okay.
I think.
Sure.
Unless you have a different direction you would like to
No,
go.
that's fine.
But you intrigued me with your answer before, so I'd kind of like to just go there if you don't mind. So
Yeah.
Are there more than the one that you mentioned, several you mentioned?
Yeah. So, so let's say continuing into college. Well, let's say late high school into college, when I really decided that music was it. Which camera? This one. I had some great people. My parents found out about this brass teacher named Donald Reinhardt.
Mm-hmm.
Doc Reinhardt.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we found out when we were at the mall in Levittown in the piano store, and there was this guy selling pianos who mentioned this Doc Reinhardt. What are the chances, And my mom, she worked in Philadelphia. She actually worked for the DA in Philadelphia. So she was a paralegal. So she arranged for me to come to the city and meet in Philly and meet Doc and take a lesson and start studying with Doc Reinhardt. So when I started, I was the youngest in his studio at the time. But soon there was someone else younger than me that came in. But for a little while, I was the youngest one. And Doc Reinhardt, for those of you who don't know, he's the guy that recognized what we call the pivot system for brass players. And he always said he didn't invent any of this. He was just a great observer. So he would observe brass players, and he would try to identify you as a player and what you did physically. And he wrote books about it, and he would help you to play high, low, and whatever, just the physical part of playing the horn. Plus, he was a very musical guy, too. He played trombone. He's a trombone player. And he was a character. He smoked cigars, and I loved going to his lessons. You could call him at night. It was like 11 p.m. You could call between certain times and ask him questions. And, you call and say, "Hey, Doc, I'm having problems. You got to play more lip slurs. He had this kind of gruff voice, But he was just a great guy. Loved that guy. I missed him a lot. And all of his papers, he would give you papers for every lesson. And they're like this thick, all my papers, and they would smell like cigars. Wow. So for years I would sniff them, just for motivation, because it brought me back to his office, in Philadelphia. But he was a great mentor because he asked me like what I wanted to do as a trombone player. He wanted me to go to Curtis. And I finally said, I think I want to be a band director. And he wasn't like, he didn't treat me any differently after that. Like he always talked about Curtis. He went to Curtis and he wanted me to go to Curtis, and he was talking about that. And when I said I wanted to be a band director, he's like, "Oh, okay, fantastic," And he totally supported me the whole time. And so I did do that. I went to Westchester, PA, and I met H. Lee Southall, my trombone teacher. He was a fantastic guy, another great mentor. And a lot of the faculty there were great people that were also, they did stuff. Like you didn't just see them in class. They were out doing things in the industry, or they were performing, they were teaching, they played in pro bands, had businesses with music and things like that. So I had a lot of great mentors there, like Doc Wells. Whoever went to a marching band camp knows who Doc Wells is. So he was a great mentor. That's going through my college, and I'm leaving out some of the other professors,
of course,
because there was just so many, but just great people that I looked up to. And then I went ahead and became a band director down in Prince Frederick at Calvert High School. Did that for 2 years. And, you know, when you teach high school, your band becomes your instrument. You know, so like I always kept my trombone by the podium, but I'd whip it out and play lines for the kids. So I was always reading and doing well. And then one day, one night, I'm in my band office, and in comes who I later I meet as John Jensen, the trombonist in the Commodores. And then the Navy Commodores start walking into my band room, right? And there was a Commodores concert in the hall there at the school for some organization, but it didn't involve the school in any way. They were just using the facilities, so I didn't know about it, and they didn't tell the band director that they'd be using my band room as a green room. But anyway, here comes the Navy Commodores. I'm like, wow. And at that time, I had the Old Instrumentalist magazine. Remember that?
Yes.
And it said Second Trombone Army Blues. And I happened to have that magazine there just as they were walking in. And John had a trombone case. And I kind of knew him from seeing the Commodores, but I didn't really know him. I was like, oh, you're John Jensen? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh, well, you know, I'm this high school band director. I'm like 24, 25. I'm like, you know, like, do you know about the Army Blues? You know, he says, that's a really good job. You should audition for that. Wow. And that turned into, a long story short, I went and won the job, and I got to know him very well. And he was someone I could call. He wasn't in the Army, he was in the Navy. So he was someone I could call up and ask for advice.
Sure.
About, you know, because when I joined the Army Blues, there was a lot of older guys. And they were mentors too, but they were there. I really need someone to talk to outside of that element for advice. And he was huge. And then I started also studying with Dave Steinmeier.
Oh.
So
wow.
You know, when I look back, I look back, like, you know, and I would play with John too. And then I was taking like lead lessons with Dave Steinmeier. You know, and I just, you know, those two guys alone,
right,
were a huge influence on me.
Right.
You know, on how to play the horn, and how to behave, and how to lead, and how to conduct yourself in not just the military, but any kind of professional organization.
Right.
You know, you have to see the big picture, not the moment.
Right.
You know.
I'm going to ask this question, and this is kind of veering away just a little bit from any question I've ever asked.
Let's veer.
Yes,
yeah.
but it's one of the reasons why, other than the fact that you're just a great player, and your resume is exactly what Jazz Tales is about, but you're such a great educator, and just the things you just said there. I mean, that's that. So I wanted to ask about mentors. Is there like this one thing that you have kind of seen from all of the people that influenced you? Like, is there this one overlying thing in each of them that just made them this? And then does that guide your teaching?
So for me, it's having the idea and following through with the plan in place. Like knowing what you want, knowing how to get there, how to do it, and then do it and follow through. And getting anything, you know, having an idea. Well, first of all, the whole jazz camp thing. I met Bob Curnow. I got to know him, and we got to talking about the Stan Kenton camps. And also I talked to Mark Taylor, is another mentor. You know, there's so many. And he went to the Kenton camps as well. And I was talking to those two about the Kenton camps, and they talked about how those camps were big band oriented, you know, but still contained elements of education, you know, the nuts and bolts of playing. And I thought, you know, we really need that around here right now, you know. So I based the National Jazz Workshop on the Kenton camps, having the big band as the Starship ensembles, you know, plus small groups. But then within that camp, we do arranging from beginning to super advanced. And then we also include arranging. And we also include production, high you know, recording and all that.
Right.
So it's just like having everything together, not just sparse.
Right.
But I really admired the professionals that I got to take lessons with and see in action, who put everything together,
right,
and followed through,
right,
and then learned from it, and then the next follow through was even better and better and better.
Yep.
You know, and doing what you want to do, putting in the work. And putting in the work, you know,
Amen.
it's work.
Amen.
And asking people to help when you need it,
Yes.
you know, to get the work done.
Amen. You know, I again, that's always been, it's good to hear it from somebody else. That's always been my experience, is to, if I had a key to everyone that's really been mentors in me, was that drive and that ability to see
Yeah.
how we get from A to B.
Yes.
Yeah.
The follow
that's
through.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we'd like to thank, again, our sponsor for this evening's episode of Jazz Tales, Russo Consultants. Thanks again for sponsoring a show this evening, and we really appreciate everybody that jumps on and really helps what we do here to get the word out and help students watch this show for free. We appreciate all of the sponsors, and thank you again to Russo Consultants. We'll hear about the individual sponsors here shortly, but let's play another tune. Which one are we going to do this time?
Well, I mentioned earlier the many sounds of the trombone. So I have my pixie mute.
Right?
Let
There
me
you go.
get that in there.
Yep.
Then I have my plunger mute. And for those of you who don't know, this is the sound of the teacher on Peanuts. That's how you get that sound. So you get the, back in Duke Ellington's day, those guys used trumpet mutes, and they would jam the trumpet mute in there because they didn't make them small enough. Now we
Make
have
them small, yeah.
yeah, big, but it's a pretty tight feel. And then you have this, and I almost forgot, you got to pull out a little bit too because it makes it real sharp. But you want to do just
Just Squeeze Me, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that
Duke
one?
Ellington, yeah.
let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Ellington, yeah.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah,
It all comes together.
it does. that's a lost art form too, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Not a lot of guys who really do that and do it well. Yeah.
It takes a while to learn it, but once you get it, like it just gives you a whole nother voice.
Right. Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So Pete Magoon says now he's finally caught up. He said that he went back and got caught up with whatever the problems they were having with buffering, and he says
Okay.
that it works like a charm, and he says sounds so good. Thank you.
Oh.
Pete is second trombone in the Columbia Jazz Band.
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
yeah, we have some trombone players here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. What are we doing next?
Oh, yeah, we haven't played the blues.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's play a blues.
Okay.
What key do you want to do?
Whatever key works for you. I'm
Well, we'll just play next. Why don't we do a B flat blues?
okay. B flat.
Yeah. And
We call this one the buffering blues.
yeah, we'll call it the buffering blues. We'll do something a little up.
Okay, yeah.
Something like that. Okay. 1, 2, yeah. The buffering blues. I don't think that melody was the same twice, but it was buffering.
Oh man, that was great. That was great. Thank you. You know, we have some people here we would like to thank for sponsoring some students. And so we're going to start out here. If I can just push the right buttons. We're going to start out here with thanking Netta and David Aragona up in Montville, New Jersey, who sponsored Alan Masters from Nutley, New Jersey, a trombone player. He's a member of the John H. Walker Middle School Symphonic Band, Jazz Ensemble, Orchestra, and the Nutley High School Marching Band. Next, we would like to thank Janet and Lou Russo up in Nutley, New Jersey, who sponsored Matthew Blanchard from Nutley, who is a member of the John H. Walker Middle School Symphonic Band and Jazz Ensemble. Thank you so much. Next, we'd like to thank Sherry and John Zimmerman in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, and John Zontek and Phoenix there in that picture from Baltimore, Maryland, who sponsored for Donna Ewing's middle school jazz band here in Easton, Maryland, to watch this evening's show. Thank you to John and Sherry and to John Zontek for making that happen. And we would also like to thank the Talbot County Arts Council for sponsoring the Easton High School Jazz Ensemble under the direction of Mr. E.J. Osterly for watching the entire 25 episodes by the end of May of the 2021 season of Jazz Tales. So thank you so much to all of our sponsors. We really appreciate you helping us out, getting this music to our youngsters free of charge. Thank you so much. So since we were just talking about students, is there one last thing that you would like to say to students before we play one more number?
Sure. Well, students of any age should research whatever you're doing thoroughly, not just the current trends, but go back to the roots, go back to the language, and just really any subject, but especially this kind of music. You need the language. You need to find out where the present trends came from, and then learn as much about your instrument as you can, all different sounds, different options. I have a few options here, but there are more things that I can do on the trombone to make it sound different. Learn different styles. Try to keep your life happens when you're making plans. So if you're planning to do something, keep it open to maybe venture off to a different road that might be something you didn't actually plan on. But you know what? Hey, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to go this way. As long as you keep your talents varied, you're versatile. Don't pigeonhole yourself into one thing. Try to do as much as you can. Learn new styles, learn new tunes. Take lessons, no matter how old you are. Listen to new things, listen to different styles. Don't just listen to one style of music, listen to everything. So if you get a call for something, you just say yes, and then figure it out. But, do as much as you can. Don't limit yourself and be open to anything. If you do that for any kind of profession, I think you'll do well.
Well said. Yeah, thank you so much. Johnny Hewing, who is the middle school band director here in Easton, and she's also on the board of directors for Jazz Alive. In
awesome.
fact, founding board of director along with me. She said, love the selections and the stories. Thanks for another night of awesome jazz. Thank you, sponsors.
Thank you.
I could have said it better. Thank you, Donna. What are we going to close with?
Well, we could do Joy Spring or A Train or...
Your call.
I haven't played with COVID. I just have not played these great standards. And A Train, A Train is a tune that people hardly ever call in sessions because it's overplayed. People say it's overplayed, but you know what? I haven't played A Train in probably a year. So
yeah,
let's play A Train.
That sounds great. And I just have to say, and tagging on to what he just said, I think that saying that it's been played too often, maybe it hasn't been played to the level at which, and that's the way I'd like to approach every single song. It's like I've only played it for the first time. I can't tell you how many renditions I have of Oscar Peterson playing the A Train. Mm-hmm. You name it.
Yeah.
Clark Terry. Some of my favorite renditions of that
Yeah.
tune. So yeah, it never gets old for me. I love playing it.
I do love that tune, but you know what I mean about.
Yes. Oh yeah, I do.
You go in a session, everything sounds the same.
But I think it goes with what you just said. I think if
Yeah.
you approach it from that.
What can we do a little different tonight? I'll leave it to you.
I don't know if it's necessarily different as it is
Okay.
just playing the tune.
Let's do it.
Faster or slow or
Yeah.
usually like it to hold it up.
Yeah.
Matt, it has
Wow.
been such a pleasure playing with you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Oh man, it's been great, great, great,
Thank
folks. Next time, 2 weeks from now, we have Daryl Brenzel here with us on Jazz Tales. Hope that you will join us for that. Again, thanks for joining us, folks. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you in 2 weeks.